Alright, today I'm actually kind of excited because I get to talk about a genre that I've always really enjoyed. One that's the precursor to genres like fighting games and brought a lot of interesting mechanics and dynamics to video games, and that's the beat 'em up genre. Now, the game we're going to talk about today isn't the first beat 'em up. That would be something closer to Kung Fu Master, which was kind of a mix of Moon Patrol and side-scrolling beat 'em up, or Renegade, also another good candidate for one of the earliest beat 'em up games. Hell no, today we're going to talk about one that made a big splash and started a huge surge in the genre as a whole, and that's Double Dragon. Oh yeah, we're doing this today. So break out your wallets, snag some tokens, and get ready to drop them like they're going out of style, because we're going to dig into what made this game popular, what games took influence from it, and how it started the boom in the genre going through the 90s. Now, Double Dragon was an early entry into the beat 'em up genre. This was a fairly new genre with really only a handful of entries, Kung Fu Master and Renegade being two of them, with many considering Renegade to be the first released in 1986. Now, this one featured pretty basic combat and the ability to pick up weapons. Many of the stages would have a timer that would count down, with the idea being to survive through the timer by defeating enemies and then take the path to the next part of the game that it would open up. Now, this is a fairly basic implementation of a beat 'em up. Shortly after this, however, a new game would drop, Double Dragon. This game was different in a few ways. First off, the graphical design was far superior to what was going on in earlier games. Given that this game came out a year after Renegades, that's honestly not surprising. However, it did do a few things differently, and some of them fairly important, so let's take a look. In Renegade, you tend to have a punch and a kick that would alternate depending on how you're facing. Kicks were always to your rear, punches to the front. Double Dragon, the original one at least, adopted a different approach with punch, kick, and jump buttons. This allowed for more flexibility in combat and, well, platforming, which isn't great, but it worked. The other thing it did was add new moves, grabs, headbutts, knee strikes, and throws. It also had a different sense of progression. The stages themselves scrolled left to right. Once you dealt with each wave, you would get an indicator to move forward. In some ways, they were just like Renegade, just not with a timer, so it felt a little more fluid, let's say. This mix of attributes and overall atmosphere of the game gave it a pretty wide appeal, and it became a massive hit, drawing more and more people into the genre, coming out with a successful sequel the next year in Double Dragon 2: The Revenge. This released in 1988. This entry would draw even more attention, in particular at one Akira Nishitani and Yoshiko Okamoto. Okamoto would go on record as saying this was the basis for their final fight game, which actually originally started as a sequel to Street Fighter, but got changed late in development to the title we now know, as they were told the game really felt nothing like Street Fighter. The game itself actually became a huge hit and was eventually picked up exclusively by Nintendo. This made Sega work up their own franchise in direct response to this, coming out with Streets of Rage, each one trying to one-up the other, and before you knew it, the market was flooded with various different beat 'em ups with different flavors, special moves, and power-ups all their own. The genre was truly at the top of its game at this point. This wouldn't last forever though, as there was only so much anyone could really do with the gameplay at the time. And after a time, people wanted deeper experiences to cut their teeth on, and there just wasn't enough change in how the gameplay was developed. It wouldn't stop us from getting great series like Golden Axe, TMNT games, and more before the genre started to fade into obscurity. So you can see from what I've described above that Double Dragon kind of came in at the right time. It had a better graphical design, it had new mechanics, and had enough flexibility and polish and presentation that it started to influence other developers at the time, giving us a wide array of startups of different beat 'em up franchises that would entertain people for years and years to come. Even though it faded from obscurity, it seems that, like, lately, there's been a resurgence of interest in the game type, with a fourth Streets of Rage, a new Turtles game, River City Girls, and even a Toxic Crusader game due to come out sometime in 2024. The co-op nature of the games, also pioneered by Double Dragon, the easy pick-up and play nature, and the challenging combat has once again caught the attention of the gaming public. All of this due to Billy and Jimmy Lee fighting over Marion in 1987. However, what do you guys think of this one? Are you a fan of Double Dragon? Are you a fan of the genre as a whole? What are some of your favorites? Let me know in the comments. And while you're there, if you don't mind, leave this video a like. And if you haven't, consider following the channel. That would help me out a ton. Until we meet again though, have a great rest of your day, and happy gaming!